And we're live.
Well, hello, lurkers and bots. This is Lucid Indifference. That's lucidindifference.com. It is 2020 11/08. This is episode 32. Well, we missed last episode. That was on what, the 4th? On the 4th. And strangely, we might actually, depending on how things work out, miss out on upcoming stuff just because there's new game content coming out. And we'll talk about that later. I really don't have a whole lot of bullet points for this show because I was kind of on vacation while Minion was on vacation, so I wasn't thinking about a whole lot of stuff. Probably the biggest event was doing a series of improvements to this space, to the entire room. Right now, about a third of this particular room is now devoted to technically this podcast, but in the future to more stuff. So I'm going to talk a bit about life because I thought of a different angle to talk about certain issues. Probably the same kind of stuff that I've talked about before, but a new angle always helps. Maybe helps a new person. I'm going to talk about this room and how I set it up and why I made some changes. That's going to be a lot of Administrivia in there later. I'll try to save that. I'm going to talk about like all of the old books and the fact that I'm kind of giving up on reading. It's kind of the strangest thing to have happened to me, to have realized that. So let me get right into the odd thing. I used to have I got one of these voice recorders, one of these portable things. Before I actually had a smartphone, I had one of these things. And it was going to serve two purposes. One is it was going to be an MP3 player. And that was because I had damaged a previous phone, the headphone jack. Yeah, Apple users, shut up. I damaged the headphone jack on a previous phone, and I decided to get a voice recorder for playing music, but also because I wanted the actual voice recorder feature. And voice recording MP3 players, it's actually a really old technology. I used to have one of these AAA battery powered little things, and it was actually a phenomenal device because it acted just as a USB stick. There was absolutely nothing special about it. You can use this as a mass storage device, and it was just fine. It was formatted like FAT32 or something or other, and this was something that was not possible with things like iPods. So yeah, Apple users, you can laugh at that now. And so I really loved that, but I never used the voice recording feature of that. I blossomed into a storyteller of some sort later in life when the technology had improved. Anyhow, I had this voice recorder, and the thing that I would do with it is my intention was to pace around my kitchen like I had been doing for a long time at multiple houses. I ended up moving to a place and finding a certain kind of shape of space in order to pace around. And so you could consider this like Zazen meditation. Is most people misunderstand it as being seated. You get the cross-legged kind of impression, right? But it can be done lying down. I wouldn't do that because amateurs fall asleep, right? But I do it walking or some version of that. And there's a lot of people that you'll see out there who will stand, and if they're doing something like a presentation, especially if you're doing a bunch of stuff off the cuff, they will move. So if you go and you watch a TED Talk, you will see a carpet. You'll see a circular carpet. And the reason is it helps constrain the speaker, because a lot of people have the desire to move while they're thinking fluidly, let's say. And this might be for camera reasons and for lighting reasons and stuff like this, because there are some difficult considerations if a person's wearing glasses or they're balding or they're otherwise kind of shiny, sweaty, nervous kind of thing. So you have some concerns. You want your lighting to be kind of consistent and all this kind of stuff. Anyway. So my desire was to have a voice recorder to pace around and to actually record my thinking. And part of that is because I've got a very fragile memory, at least in the context of having that kind of open-mindedness, that meditative state. things just tend to be fragile. It's kind of like waking up from sleep, trying to hold on to memories, hold on to the dreams. Things kind of don't work. And that kind of works when I'm pacing. And I expect that this is the same for some people, like some minority of people, but significant enough that my description should resonate with some people. And so I had the notion of recording stuff and then editing it or broadcasting it or whatever the heck. And some of the podcasting idea evolved out of that, like a decade later kind of thing. But one of the, well, where I totally went down the strangest thing there. So one of the things I had been thinking of, and it was kind of an incomplete thought because I had no ability to really write it down as fast as I can think it, and I had no voice recorder with me. It's partly an embarrassment thing. If you're in a kitchen, you're pacing around and you're talking to yourself, you have to have your household used to that notion, and you have to lack embarrassment. So there's sometimes topics that you might be exploring, and if you're exploring them out loud, like not in your head, some of the things that you might explore out loud are not something that you would include in regular conversation or in regular conversation with the people that would be in listening range. So it can be that environment with those potential listeners, and even the idea of them potentially listening, not actually doing it, but potentially can be embarrassing enough. So if you were to like pace around and talk to yourself about like politics or about the depths of philosophy or about morality things or about, and these are things that you wouldn't normally discuss in conversation with those people, that might disturb them in whatever capacity, right? Or it might be a spoiler because you might want to actually talk to one or more of those people when you have completed your thoughts, right? When you actually have a tale that you've woven together well enough that when you're talking about that topic in the future, it would be more coherent. Now, so there are all kinds of problems with thinking and forming thoughts and stitching it all together and then keeping it and then conveying it in the right context to the right people, and et cetera, et cetera. Things are challenging. And so I have kind of a half aborted thought that was in my head that I was tinkering with. And it had to do with, like, I often create not exactly caricatures, but when I am exploring notions, I will just have some imaginary thing in my head, some person ask me a question or ask me something dumb or something that's quote unquote complicated, like the kinds of awkward questions that a child asks a parent, and the parent is not a philosopher type or necessarily practiced with children. Like there's a difference between the parent of a first child and the teacher, what would we say? Because it's not exactly a teacher. So if you're like a kindergarten teacher, so who has decades of experience working with that category of little person, right? They would be more competent at handling a lot of that stuff, although they're not parents, and specifically they're not a parent of that particular child. So there are interesting kind of a manufactured kind of question that can be posed essentially from myself to myself, and interesting stuff can arise from it, because you can be challenged asking yourself something like, what's the meaning of life? which if you understand how to approach that question, which I'm not going to do right now because it would be an interesting skit, if you approach that question in very strange angles, you can kind of pull an interesting story out of it. You can mine quite a lot of interest. And if that can be remembered, written down, recorded somehow, you can actually pull something out of that as something interesting to tell an actual human being in the real world, because you've thought about it in your in your mind, so to speak. You've segmented things out, so you've got these different characters in a play in your imagination. Anyway, I was thinking about something like that the other day. I think it was literally a day or two ago, and I was saying something like, the dumb question was, how do you make a pie? Because that's one of the jokes, is uh, if somebody is live streaming, or if somebody is like, yeah, anybody want to ask me a question about anything, go ahead, just, I'm here. And some random kind of half troll says, well, okay, how do you bake a pie? That's a joke. I don't know if that's a thing where you're from. I don't know if that's popular anymore. Maybe that's quote unquote old internet. Minion, have you ever heard of somebody joking with that? Like,
I've never seen that.
really? I don't know. Maybe it was like, I think it was pre-Twitch, which is what we're streaming through right now. And it might have been, I don't know, it might have been one of these earlier chat roomy type things like, oh, why is my brain not working? I can't recall some of the earlier, like, the internet has moved on from some of the earlier technologies. Anyway, so the dumb comment that is, how do you bake a pie? And it goes something like, well, uh, you might think that you would bake a pie by going and getting yourself a nice recipe and then just trying it, just doing it. But you're not going to be able to make a good pie just by getting a recipe, because you don't know how to do anything else that's associated with making a pie. If you're a baker and if you've made other pies, let's say, you could go to an individual recipe and you can draw on your past experience, and you can do it, or you can figure it out. And if it's a poor explanation, then you can kind of just, you can fill in the gaps yourself with your own past expertise, etc. But if you're new and you don't know how to do it, well, you don't go and get a recipe necessarily. I mean, you can get one, but half of the explanation you skip over. So you go, for example, you go out and you get a pie plate, right? You don't try to put it, you don't go and buy the extra parts. You don't go and buy a special baking tray. And in fact, you don't even figure out how to make the dough. Like, don't do that. Go and get one of these pre-made like aluminum foil pie plates that already has the crust, quote unquote crust, the bottom crust in it. And what you would do is you'd make your own filling, because the filling is pretty straightforward. And that's the baby step in the right direction for the confidence for doing something like this. And a lot of everything is like that. A lot of life is like that. A lot of your larger dreams, goals is kind of like this, where don't go after the complete picture. Try to refine it as much as possible so that you can take pieces of it and just steal some template from somewhere, some piece of the puzzle that's already been solved by somebody else. Don't play pretend like you have to do absolutely everything in life from scratch. Borrow from the people that have actually made something for people to borrow, right? So in baking a pie, you're purchasing a manufactured element of it. It's not quote unquote authentic, but it's okay. It's good enough. You will have participated in making a pie. And I think I've told this story before. There was the, believe it or not, instant cake mix. The original instant cake mix from, I cannot recall the name of the brand. It's not Betty Crocker. It might have been. The very first cake in a box that you bake yourself actually was 100% complete. It was a just add water kind of recipe, right? This is before you add your own whatever. This is literally just add water. And that product failed.
Really?
The product failed because part of the experience that people were looking for, well, that's the thing. They didn't want to purchase a box and add water and mix it and bake it. There was something. Sorry?
Those boxes, I thought it was add water and an egg or two and then mix it and go. I thought it was pretty handy and time saving.
Well, that's the thing. The original of that product had everything in it. It had all the milk ingredients for the creaminess, it had all the egg, it had everything in. It was just add water. That's not a more recent invention. That was the original. And it was a flop. And what they did is they pulled back and thought, well, people are looking for convenience, but not too much convenience because they want to feel like they're producing something in the end, that they had to put more work into it. There was something about an experience they were making convenient too much of it, and they were cutting out too much of it, and people didn't purchase that product for that reason. And so when they came out with this other one where it's like, well, you have to add milk and you have to go and get eggs and you have to whip it and you have to do this. They added more steps. They made it more convoluted. They made it less convenient, strangely. And that really took off. And this secondary one where it's literally just add water, that came out a little bit later when, I mean, the world started changing and that kind of convenience, it caught on to a different demographics. Something happened to let that. So now that's on the shelf next to it. I don't know which is more popular or not. Like I'm Dude Bros, so I would go to the one that only needs water. But I have learned, I mean, I was going to talk about this later, but I purchased this hot chocolate mix. It was inexpensive, which is part of the selling point for me, but it was a just add water, right? For hot chocolate. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that could be any good. And I can always add milk, that no problem, right? But it's interesting that they're selling it like that. I wonder, and I got it, and it isn't just bad; it's a special kind of surprising bad. And I'm gonna drink it all, and it's going to stick in my memory for a long time. I probably never. I'm going to specifically avoid just add water hot chocolate. I'm going to get the stuff that actually requires milk, requires it, not optional at all. Anyhow, the how do you bake a pie is related to the hot chocolate. It is related to the making a cake thing. There are some things that you can. There's a difference between going and buying a pre-made pie and then baking it, and you can't pretend like you made it. You heated it up. Okay, it's more complicated. It's baking. It's middle rack at this temperature and preheat and pull it out. You need the oven mitts. I mean, you have to have the oven in the first place. Like, but that's you're not making it, but you can get the pie plate and the but you have to make the filling yourself. You have to, let's say, cut apples and have it in just the right kind of right amount of water and with brown sugar, and you have to boil it down. You get like a syrupy texture, and you pour that in, and there's more to it. And so in the back of your head, you will always know. You'll never fool yourself into thinking you made 100% of it, but you made enough of it. You made what matters, because what matters in a pie is the filling, right? And all of the other, like the baking and the treating it right and the cooling it on the windowsill or whatever, like all this stuff, it all contributes to one creating something that, like, one's creating like the participation in the thing. And it's very much like the entire cake thing, because having to go and shop for all the other ingredients, needing the intent when handling all this stuff, handling all the parts, needing to like beat the eggs separately, needing to fold things in, needing to do whatever the heck, all these different steps, really. Because I mean, what is the powder anyway? It's flour, and it's got what, the right amount of baking soda or sugar or whatever the heck, and it's got like a little packet of pre-made icing and this. So it's like there's so many cheats in there, but it's real work to like put the icing on a cake properly, for example. And I was thinking that There was a demonstration that I saw. I knew this technology from a long time ago. I can't remember if I've talked about this, but even if you don't have a microphone, okay, so these days you've got a microphone if you've got a smartphone, and believe it or not, the microphone in a contemporary, 5 years old or less phone, like one of these, the audio is spectacular. It's unthinkably good, certainly compared to earlier phones, but compared to a lot of like really amateur equipment. Now, pro-grade microphone stuff is like, people will still pay top dollar for the recreations. I mean, obviously of contemporary manufacturing, but the continuation, the lineage of microphones from like the 70s even, right? So those are, some of the models are still being made. Now things are a little bit weird, but audio is a weird topic. Now, but for like an everyday person grabbing a microphone, USB microphones are pretty new, right? Compared to other kinds of microphones, compared to the other stuff. Now, strangely, really strangely, I've always known that this was possible. You can actually take an old pair of headphones that's busted. Like say the band is busted. Somebody's throwing it out in front of yours, you can just take it. And you can actually plug it into your microphone jack. Like you plug your headphones into your microphone jack and you can talk into the left headphone. It's a microphone. The technology goes both ways. It's just analog. So it goes both ways, and you can speak into one of the headphones and it generates electricity. It goes in reverse and it gets picked up as a quote unquote microphone signal. Like you can do the dumbest things, because what matters in that particular context isn't so much the quality of the, let's call it the fidelity. It's the content of the speaking. Now, the problem is that's not so true these days, because it's really common. Like everybody has the ability to, like I don't want to say something like there's a lowest common denominator, but there's enough. It's not competition. It's like the video games thing that I said before, which is now all genres of video game all compete with every other genre. All of them, because all of them want to compete with time. They're not like I'm trying to get the racing car audience, and so all the racing car games are competing against one another, and the shooters are all competing against other shooters. It's no. Racing car games want that hobby time, and shooters want that hobby time, and tactical games want that hobby time. It's a person with a finite amount of time. Now they're all competing over that terrain. And the same is true for really anything that involves the internet, really, is everything is competing against everything else. And that there is now a flood of everything. Now there are really dangerous choke points where people have to use search features in platforms and such in order to find what they would be more interested in. So it may well be that you're one tree in a forest for what you do, and you can't ever be found, especially if the platform itself doesn't have if there are no mechanisms to have it promote you. So if you're too niche, then the platform might not recognize you as being, this isn't a commentary on advertiser friendliness, but if you're too niche, then there are not going to be advertisers that are looking for your type of content to advertise on. Not that you're offensive or anything, it's just they would find better matches elsewhere. So it might be difficult to get sponsorships, for example. Now, for something like this podcast even, right? You can be low fidelity. You can be low fidelity in a hobby, but when you're in in a large marketplace and everybody's competing for time, it doesn't matter how niche you are, how interesting you are, there is now a bar that is raised up to the bar is raised to fidelity, which is the problem. And so it's not enough to just make the filling. So if you have a project, it's starting to be a problem where it's not enough for you to make a filling and you can bake a pie and it's good as a pie. For yourself, absolutely. You can do all kinds of projects for yourself. Borrow all the components from everywhere, cut and paste from everywhere, make your own thing, be happy for yourself. But it's not going to let you compete in the greater world because the fidelity of everybody's effort and expertise will make that stuff stand out. So I'll make trees in a forest, you get taller trees. I don't know how to. I'm really stretching that one. So I'm not sure how to solve that problem, because now you've got weird situations where now people are selling, for some reason, they're selling services to help bootstrap up other people into a particular field. It's the strangest thing. Like, you can go to people that specialize in the hobby that you want to well, okay, so the word amateur is a person who wants to become a professional. Now, we misunderstand that word. We've started using it as a person who is not professional. What it means is a person who isn't professional yet, right? But they want to be. Okay, so I'm going to use that word in that correct sense. There are professionals which provide services to bootstrap amateurs, which makes no sense to me whatsoever, because if that professional was any good, that professional would stay a professional, and it would be the professional. They would be successful in doing that as their job. It's like it's a lesser person that would need to step down and teach others to be in that field that they're not successful in. It's kind of weird. So for little people that are amateurs that are trying to improve, it's kind of strange because you can purchase the services or purchase the advice from these so-called professionals, like these half professionals, and you can kind of get bootstrapped up, but you have to know that you're getting something that isn't working for them. It sounds strange, but because if it did work for them, then they'd be off doing that. Right? So there's something that you don't understand. This is a straightforward response to people who want to sell you financial services. They're like, if you only do this trick and this trick and this trick, well, then you will make all this money. And you're like, well, why are you telling me that instead of doing that yourself? Like, seriously, obviously it's not successful, or you'd just be off doing that and you'd be busy doing that and making money. Now, you can have arguments that say, well, that person really finds their passion not in the being professional in that direction, but maybe in getting the expertise, but not pursuing too much professionality. So they love the expertise and they love teaching. That kind of person must exist somewhere. And you can't tell if you have a half-failed professional that's stepping back and mentoring amateurs, or if you've got one of these really, like, it does sound like I'm really reaching to describe the kind of person that would be good for you to bootstrap yourself up from being amateur out, pushing yourself into the direction of being professional. And so there's a lot of, and that's kind of the problem, is you can get advice, and it's the best advice I found on everything is finding these glorious nerds that have these technical level wars against one another. That are like, your math is wrong because this and this, and the acoustics of this, and your physics is bad, and you should feel bad. And you're like, as a complete know-nothing hopefully maybe getting amateur one day. You're looking this and going like, it's all completely over your head. So when I'm listening to like serious, actual professional, paid professional, decades of experience engineers, or like actual artists, or quote unquote artists, like, well, wow, you do hip hop or you do rap. I'm like, well, do I want to listen to mixing advice from this person? Well, maybe, especially if they're saying something strange and somebody somewhere in that field has a disagreement. Then you get to listen to both and learn something, kind of catch on, and figure out what they're battling over. You can make some decisions on your own. And in the sense, when you've got two professionals that are fighting like that, mom and dad are fighting, right? And so these pros are in these pitched battles that might be years long over like these weird topics. It might be that one of them is absolutely correct and the other person is just being, what is the word? Why can't I think of the word? Like bullheaded? There's a better word that I want. And they've got some adamant position that is actually technically wrong. Now, you might not be able to tell who is right and wrong. And sometimes they're both right in weird contexts. And sometimes they're right and wrong. And it depends on sometimes these pros are arguing over things that don't apply to regular humans, because they're arguing over something that would cost you tens of thousands of dollars to have the equipment for. And so their opinion doesn't really matter to you, but some of it can kind of rub off. And if you're the type, some of it can be really interesting. And so if all you want to do is make your pie for yourself, yeah, you can bootstrap yourself up until you get a pie made. And you've done enough that it feels fulfilling, right? You've made that cake, you've added your eggs and your milk, and you've made it's close enough. You don't think about it too hard, but it is close enough to you making the cake. And that success, like I said before, that success breeds a kind of momentum. And that and there's a kind of how would I say it? Oh, ever get that moment when you feel like sneezing? You're not quite close enough. There is this moment where that small success will give you enough confidence to try for something that is more authentic. So at some point you get good at making those kind of quote unquote pre-made, and you'll try making your own actual pastry, your own actual crust, you'll do something a little different. And that can be bad as long as you've got good morale, as long as you're fairly mentally healthy, let's say, that when you screw up, it's not a horrible experience to eat your mistake. And I mean that literally. If you're making a pie and you screw up and it ends up being turned into like a kind of hot oatmeal, it's like, well, it's still really good. So yeah, okay, fine. I remember, okay, so when I was first kind of learning to bake, and I don't know that I've progressed from there because it hasn't been much of a hobby. So I remember what I did is I wanted a couple of variations that would let me. So there's the joke about Mexican food that I hear Mexicans make, which is like, well, you have this ingredient and this ingredient and this ingredient. And they're like, well, how do you make a this? And they're like, well, okay, you have this ingredient and this ingredient and because it's kind of the same ingredient. Well, it's not, because they're treated differently and they're spiced differently, and you produce something that is different. That's why it's got a different name. And so when I was learning this, a couple of basic recipes, I learned how to make an apple crumble. And an apple crumble is, well, it's crumbly. So it's like, if you accidentally make it more crumbly or less crumbly, it doesn't really matter. It's just, you have this base that you kind of mash into kind of the bottom of a pie, and this filling that you kind of throw in, and this topping that you kind of throw on, kind of, and then you bake it. Now, it's right next door to a pie, which I kind of wanted to learn, and it's right next door to making date squares, which is what I did want to learn. And they're all the same ingredients. They're just kind of in different shapes and treated a little differently, right? They're compressed a different way, or there's a different amount of filling versus crust, or there's like a little more oats in this one and a little, right? And there are differences. And I was able to then play with, I played with a vegetarian version of it because normally for a lot of baking, you've got butter, right? But for some vegetarians, butter is a no. I can't remember the term. I was experimenting with vegetarianism.
Vegan.
No, that's different. Vegans can't even wear leather belts. Vegetarians just don't eat meat. But there are vegetarians that will have milk and milk products, and there are even vegetarians that will accept eggs. So it's like an animal flesh thing for some vegetarians, and some are more strict. And vegans are not just more strict; they have a complete worldview that includes like no eating a certain kind of jello because gelatin comes from, or some gelatin used to or does come from bone, I believe it is. And that is like I said, I'm never going to experiment with veganism unless I fall in love with a vegan. I'm not even sure then, because I like leather belts and I have some really nice shoes and some boots that I'm going to wear this winter. I'm kind of excited. I kind of want it to be cold and for there to be a reason for me to like get out. What was it? I was talking about pies. I think I'm done talking about pies. Let me talk about something else. I'm actually not sure how long this show can go because I'm really out of bullet points between shows. Most of the time what I'll do is I'll pace around, or I'll think, or I'll experience life. And then I'll just take a bullet point, or I'm trying to add a phrase or something. And it's a topic for me to talk about later. And it's a little weird because sometimes And so I've always felt that, that one classic cramp in that one leg, in that one area, ow. I hate that. So I've always, so it's a weird problem. So I could have interesting ideas out there, and then I have to kind of hold on to them and not talk to Minion about them in order to like bring them to the podcast. Because my hope is to like ramble through it and kind of explore it live and maybe engage Minion in it one day. And the problem is, Minion, I think you require body language, or something.
What language?
Body language. Like there's when I was, because I still have like 4 or 5 of our pre-episodes before we knew anything about anything. And I was really free and really kind of edgy isn't even the right word. So I was correct about my speech, but it's the kind of correct that would make other people cry or really hate me. But I'm right. So, and that's kind of a problem to be listening to somebody who knows that they're right for reasons. And yeah. Anyhow, so that was our previous show, our previous kind of like pre-show experimentation, because we didn't even know how to use the software to record things, let alone like literally knew nothing about nothing. Got to start somewhere. And Minion, you were, you had a personality. You had a very different personality, even recorded like that. And it's enough of a real shame that I still wonder if we were to do like podcast and just like time delay, not do it live, and just do it like 3 a.m. and just see what you're like, even if we moderate what we're talking about, just to get you participating more, even if the camera is only on me. Yeah. Speaking of camera, I do want to pursue a camera for next Wednesday. It's one of these things where I've been so busy, I'd lost track of the day of the week. So on the 11th, I was hoping to, it's not exactly face reveal because I got a YouTube channel. I have 3 actually, and I've shown my face before. It's been a little while, maybe have extra wrinkles. And so putting my face up for this live stream is something that I still want to do. And I will continue to talk about the massive amount of changes I needed to do to make that possible. Because the amount of work I had to go through over the last few days, like I said, lost track of days of the week. When you have blackout curtains and you stop being able to tell what time of day it is, life gets really, like, weekends get really odd when you have to step outside, like outside a room, and be like, oh, there's daylight here. I can't remember when I last slept. This kind of thing. So yeah. I mean, even if you're not shown on camera, Minion, we might have like our Sunday episodes or something like that. Maybe we would record them. Well, okay, Saturdays are kind of busy, but maybe what we do is some other thing, like take Wednesdays and instead record them at like 3 a.m. and then time shift them. And that way we can do the 3 a.m. in person with one another, and not even have it on camera, and then just see if we can pull more out of you. Something like, or just do an experiment like we did with our first pre-shows. Do an experiment with like a 2 a.m. conversation somewhere. Go, parks are closed, but I'll like break the law, break the bylaws, and go do a podcast in the park at 2 a.m. I wonder if the bylaws there because people would like neighbors get bothered by people talking, something dumb like that. I know it's because sprinklers turn on at like 2 a.m. if you've got sprinklers in your parks, right? Anyhow, so we're coming up on a break. Let's take that right now. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. I'll see you guys real soon.
Oh, we're back.
Oh, we are. Hello, lurkers and bots again. We got Lurks, my favorite lurker, in here. This is 2020-11-08. This is episode 32 of Lucid Indifference. That's lucidindifference.com. Segment 2, I want to talk about some stuff I probably should have talked about in the first segment, but I want to talk about my diet some more. So this is some interesting, some weird stuff, I think. Now, okay, so one of the things about all professionals that you deal with is you're not the only client. All right. And I've talked about the quote unquote rich perspective, which is when you go to a doctor, like a general practitioner, your family doctor, or you go to your like a dentist, or you go to get your hearing checked, or you go and like you do all these things, you interact with these professionals, and those are the most common examples of who we think of. It's that person is technically during that time period your, in a sense, employee, not servant, right? And so you can get quite a lot out of that person. The problem is those people are used to dealing with other people, not you, other people. And how do I say that without, like, I am the sort where they can talk shop with me and I will understand very little of it, but I will go and I will learn. And the next time they can talk shop with me and I'll understand more, like a lot more, and they can convey quite a lot more to me rather than dumbing it down and wasting my time, right? So I've had specialists try to understand my sleep, my wacky sleep and stuff like this. And I've talked to a few people about my diet already, things like this. And the thing is, all of them have been holding back. They've been holding back, and they're not using the technical terms, and they're not using the and all this kind of stuff, right? So for example, my family doctor, she's sending me off to, I have to go and dig up a printer so I can print out the form. She's sending me off to get blood work done. And I've been holding back on doing that kind of stuff because it involves going outside in places where there are people, and stuff like blood work is, I have had the perception that that ought to be reserved for more critical stuff, given the times, for people that would need that kind of service, the kind of more significant medical service, because of more significant illnesses that might come around. Well, they haven't. So I'm able to go and do that. And so the doctor's like, well, we want to check if you have, I think the term is celiac disease. And what that is that sensitivity to gluten. Now, again, the explanations are never very good. And so it's like, well, now I go look that up as a start, because I don't want to just hear gluten sensitivity. I want to understand what that is, what it's from. Is this a damage from a lifetime of a certain kind of environment, or is it my lifestyle? Is this a genetic disorder that I inherited from one of my parents? Is it mysterious? Is like, are there other things in life that could exacerbate that problem? Like what like, is there impact on mood for people with this who are sensitive but not like poisoned by it, kind of thing, where mood changes or sleep changes? Because that's the big one that I'm really interested in, is because if you don't have good sleep, well, what you going to do tomorrow? You're going to be kind of off. Well, what are you going to accomplish? And the next day when you wake up having not accomplished as much as you know you should have, or you could have, and then the day after, and then like what was I talking about? I was talking about diet. Okay, so I have found, and that's the thing. Any one of these specialists could have told me this, but there's a link between not sleeping a whole lot, having and having really tricked out senses. So the fact that I have a hypersensitive sense of smell is actually related, is a group of things that can happen, that have happened to other people altogether. I'm like, oh, well, that would have told me a lot. That would have told me to look out for these other things. And some of these things have names. Some of them are just kind of grouped together haphazardly. Some of them have like famous people attached and stuff like this. So it's challenging to listen to people that just bluntly give instructions to go like, here's a paper, go here. Like, well, I got for the blood work. Oh man, I totally want to call it up, but do I have it in a bookmark? I'm going to clickety clack. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm getting close. Oh, wait, no, it would be up here. Yes. Okay. So in that document that I'm supposed to print and give to go and get blood work to determine if I've got this gluten sensitivity. Okay. It had a bunch of codes in one section. It's like the patient list of, it's like the problem box, because sometimes the doctor needs to convey all the other associated issues in order for that other specialist to be like, blah, 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 and just in case something else matters, right? So if it turns out I had some wacky allergy or something like that, then they couldn't poke me with a certain kind of needle, whatever the heck weirdness happens. What do I know? Because it's not my field. It's like, okay, well, elevated bilirubin. Like, okay, well, that was a thing that I was tested for that was mysterious, a thing I did blood work with before. Well, I didn't realize that was still like on my like I now have a permanent record with that listed. Like, how weird is that? And it's like, oh, then it's like codes like OA and then DDD or it's like, okay, well, it's like, okay, so there's osteoarthritis and degenerative disc. Apparently I have degenerative disc disease. That would have been nice for them to tell me. They never told me that. Osteoarthritis? Well, I also didn't know about that. And something called sciatica. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sciatica. Sciatica. And that, so these are the actual technical names of, well, when I sleep wrong and I'm an idiot, and my back will compress, which is the degenerative disc disease. And I don't know what the heck the osteoarthritis is there for, but it causes pain actually, it's really weird because it happens a little bit in other places, but you can actually pinch nerves in your spinal column and those branch off to everywhere in your body, and it'll actually hurt in my leg, right? So I've got like code words, like literally their acronyms and stuff like that listed in a little box, because I'm the curious sort. I actually read the paper that they want me to print out and give to these other people. And I never had these things told to me, even in the technical words. Just like write the stuff down for me, doc. It'd be nice. Like, okay. So it's like, okay, well, we'll learn a little bit more about myself. Like, why not? Like, it's kind of cool to learn this kind of stuff. And so I branched off and I went, okay, you can look on Wikipedia if you're just curious. If you know that you're going to get lied to, as long as you keep that in mind, you can go to Wikipedia and like kind of look up this stuff. At least it's amusing. It's amusing. So that was kind of cute for me to experience. Ooh, I was holding down push to talk through all of that, but I was switched to a different environment that ignored my push to talk. That was cool. Okay, what was I talking about? I was totally okay. So I did want to talk about my diet though. So I am still convinced, and nobody can explain this. Maybe you just need to type in really blunt blunt phrases into search engines and ask the oracle that is Google. Like, for some reason, bacon is still a thing. I don't know why. I've narrowed it down, so if I have 2 slices of apparently any kind of bacon, then I feel better, right? It's not meat. It's not the fat from bacon, right? Because now I'm patting out the, meaning I'm stealing some of your paper towel, and I'm patting out the grease from my bacon, and I'm eating that. So it's kind of like firm, dry bacon now. And it's a hair away from me actually crumbling it up, and maybe I should bake it en masse and then dehydrate it. Something like this. That would be my grand experiment. But I think that works too. And I knew that would work because I was using for a long time. Like I said, I make biltong, which is like a southern African dried beef. It's not like beef jerky, but I do treat it much like that. And I've made that and then used what is called lard, which is what that is you take bacon and you have the quote unquote bacon grease, and you throw it through a very fine filter and just keep that, and make sure that the container you put it in first off isn't plastic, but is one of these like specialist glass bakeable containers, so you can pour hot grease into it safely without cracking it. And then and you don't have it on a cool counter and all this kind of you gotta know this stuff. That's because I know about the physics and such. And I've used that as a dipping sauce for my dried beef, and that doesn't do it, but straight bacon does. So, and straight bacon without the grease, I think does. I'm gonna keep doing it for a while, and that's awesome. And I thought chocolate mattered, and I think chocolate doesn't matter at all because I avoided it for weeks. And we make fun of women for this in particular, because there's this thing where they're like, well, in a bad mood, in a woman mood or whatever the heck, right? And they'll eat chocolate cookie dough ice cream or whatever, chocolate chip cookie dough, or they'll have a lot of chocolate, or they'll whatever, like they have advertised that for themselves, and I had believed that in myself as well. And I've been kind of feeling like crap one day. Just have a chocolate bar. I think I gained a bit of weight because of that misunderstanding. But nope, that's not it. But bacon is. Right? And my doctor's like, I know that if she was able to express her her mind properly, she'd like squint at me a little bit for saying like, help me, doc. Why? Something else, please. Anything but bacon. Bacon is inconvenient. But I confirmed this. Pizza makes me sad. I mean that literally. Pizza actually makes me sad. I ate pizza for dinner. It's like one of these big deep dish pizzas, and the back of my brain went, I just want the extra bread. I'm sick of these tiny little joke pizzas, right? And so. And that it was big. It was really big. So it's like early dinner and then late dinner. And then the next day it was breakfast. And I think later that day it hit. And then the day after it hit. And then it lingered for the day after that. It's just the most despondent, unmotivated, the I want to sleep in. I don't feel like showering. I don't know what to do. Nothing is interesting. And there's actually a technical word for that, which I forgot to write down. And man, wow, okay. Stupid past self should have written this shit down. Wow. Okay, I'm going to make a mental note, and this is a mental note I'm not going to have to write down, because that's actually really important, because I wonder if I can link that back to diet. Because again, bread, right? That's bread. And because I've experienced that with pasta and this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, okay, well, nothing else in my diet had been different at that point. That was the weird thing. There was one other thing that I ate that was different. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I ate chili. right? And I had been eating chili on and off for a little while, and I had done it for like multiple days in a row because I make a big pot of chili, and so I eat it for every other meal for days straight until it's done. I don't keep it for very long, and I'm fine for that. That's never been a mood killer, but pizza, yeah. So like, well, I guess cross that off my list. Oh, see, pizza makes me sad. Eating pizza makes me sad, and the fact that I can't eat pizza also makes me sad. So I can't win. So add gluten-free pizza, maybe? Like, is my life going to get more expensive because I have to be one of these snooty? I'm gonna turn into one of those people. It's like I have to eat gluten-free, and I shop. There's that one aisle in every big grocery store that has all the dumb, unjustified, expensive stuff. I'm gonna have to walk through it, aren't I? Kind of like it's the embarrassing thing. It's the walk of shame down that one aisle. At any rate, totally onto some other different stuff. Minion, do we have? Because you were on vacation, we kind of accidentally planned for it. Are there very many clips that are still queued that haven't gone up yet from my previous shows, etc.?
I think I missed out on a few days for scheduling. I somehow didn't do it apparently, and then I checked earlier. I just mass uploaded all. I just set them to mass public release.
Okay, so do you have anything that's left that is queued?
I don't have anything to be queued.
Okay, so previous episode 31, I haven't even started. And part of that is it's really intimidating because I have to look at all of my uber expert audio manipulation stuff, which is different with this microphone. So it's kind of scary. So I will get on top of that. No, probably not after this show, but definitely tomorrow. Like definitely I will finish it tomorrow. And one of the reasons I have to finish it and get into this episode, like what you'll be able to do is after the show, you can copy it into our sync folder and I'll get your stuff that way real easy eventually. Right. So if you do that, I don't know, later tonight, like before you go to bed, then I'll get it all tomorrow after I'm done this stuff. And I'll do that as, again, 5 hours kind of thing, right? I will do that as soon as I can. Now, the reason I want to get all that up and ready and multiple clips and full shows and all this kind of stuff, right, is because on the 10th, new content comes out on the only game I really care about, World of Warcraft. And this is, the reason this is important is because it is literally once in a lifetime stuff. Not that it's like interesting, important. It's not really important, but it's this content for this game does not reappear. And it may well be interesting toy stuff. Like there was one where I did get one actual advantage. It was a very slight actual game advantage in pursuing that once, that single opportunity that I pursued. So there may well be similar stuff happening for this stuff. And that starts on the 10th. And I don't know what that means for time. It's not like, how sometimes something interesting pops up and it just takes up all your time, right? It's not that it would be like that necessarily, but there are other people who I might want to play with who themselves have more time or only have time during show hours. And if that comes up and I don't want to take a break because I want to go and play with them, and normally that wouldn't happen. Normally that wouldn't happen because the way this show is scheduled is even on days when I would expect to play with them, it would happen outside of show hours, right? But this may be an exception because I know people that are taking time off, and then it has been officially announced that the full expansion is coming out on the 23rd, in which case I will absolutely be busy, so much so it's ridiculous, which probably means that can probably take breaks. I probably should take breaks in order to do this show. And the problem is that will take quite a lot of time to also do the post-production, to do the editing and stuff. And I will probably have done all of the hard lifting, the technical stuff up front, so the macros work well. And then it's technically easy for me to do the editing and the clipping work. Now, what I will probably do is I will probably kind of reduce the quality of stuff, in that I won't be pursuing, there won't be awesome notes all throughout the descriptions. I'll just do the important stuff, because I will be probably playing simultaneously while listening to while listening to myself. It's not an ego thing. It is, I eat my own dog food, right? I listen to everything I'm saying in order to improve next time. So for example, I want to say less, this kind of stuff. And I'm becoming more aware of it. I'm still saying things like, some of that actually gets clipped out from my amazing audio editing, but the live experience has that stuff, and I do want to improve that. I do. Okay, so that is still kind of yet to be determined. And because the 10th is a Tuesday, and our show is the Wednesday, I will full well know from Tuesday throughout the night what that experience is going to be like, in order to know if that is going to damage the ability for me to do a podcast or to do the editing or whatever, right? I will be able to figure that kind of stuff out. So I will report back on Wednesday, and if I am unavailable, I don't know what Minion will do. So the live show just kind of.
You want to just cancel it altogether for?
Well, no, Wednesday? that's the thing. Maybe I don't want to, because I would need the necessary break, right? Playing that game is not going to be my full-time job. It might actually be unhealthy. That's something you do.
Destiny's new content is dropping
on Tuesday.
Oh
my! So it is for two. Oh, okay, so yeah, wow.
And I'm probably going to spend a good amount of time, a lot of time.
As in, you're not going to sleep.
Getting to soft cap. Speaking of which,
yeah.
So there's somewhat of a leveling, not really a leveling system, but a gear system that has numbers, and every time something drops, it either increases the number by 1 or 2.
Oh yeah.
And so my aim is to get as closest to the soft cap as possible, and then work on. And then there's only a few activities I can do that can get me past the soft cap.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so I know what you're saying. Okay, because I've done it myself. So for our listeners who may not play the game, so right now the content that is available to play has a certain kind of character limit, and you can perform all kinds of actions in the world to improve things or to get variations on what you're equipping, right? And so there is the most mature success, and it plateaus in a certain place, and you can't get any better, right? And most people all avid players of the game are at that level, right? Are already capped there. And then that limit, that plateau, gets given a little bit of a boost. And then the new content, well, technically a lot of the content, but will bait the player with a small improvement. And there are certain limitations based on what things you pursue as to how large that improvement is. And some of that is time limited per day. Like, you can only do certain things every day in order to gain those perks, those advantages. And so what Minion is saying, part of it is to pursue 100% of the things that would give a reward every single day without fail. Every single one of those things, every single event, every single match, every single and which could, in theory, take quite a long time. Quite. There are certain activities I don't do for philosophical reasons, like I don't PvP, which is unfortunate. Um, and I might actually be so lazy that I really don't want to do like dungeons, the equivalent. God, they're boring. So boring. They're so boring that people just run ahead and act like idiots and stuff, which I like. I think is lots of fun, but it's just so boring to have to do like n umpteenth number of them every single. Is it every week? I think it is every week. Certainly.
Yes.
Mm. So yeah, that's so you are interested in just canceling that day under the assumption that you probably ought to spend all like
I'll be there.
hard.
I'll be incoherent, but I guess it wouldn't be nothing out of the ordinary since I rarely talk at all.
Well, okay. I you're probably going to say no, but what is stopping you, technically speaking? What is stopping you from streaming that and just having me talk?
Nothing.
So what about like privacy issues, let's say, because your character name might get displayed?
Yeah, but at this point, it won't matter.
You sure? Like, I don't know. So for example, this is Steam, and your Steam name can be scrambled, but it's kind of important for you to be recognizable to, like, you're not really in a satisfactory guild still, right? So I don't know how important it is for you to be recognized. So theoretically, and if you use that, if that's like your account name on Reddit or something like that, that might mean something. Or if that's your OnlyFans or something like that. I don't know what you're into, right? And people were to like look you up, then that might get back to the show. Not that it necessarily matters to me. I am PG-13 technically. For most, I mean, reading off fairy tales with the gruesome deaths in it is not kid friendly. So I'm not a kid friendly. Oops. Oh, I'm gonna have to edit that out. Sorry, that was a mic handling sound. So I'm not too concerned about that, but we have lives that are different from our gaming experience. So if you're fine with streaming that, because that could be part of our, like, you can put me on stream in a little window and I'm just talking about random stuff. Maybe I'll watch your gameplay and I'll backseat drive because you're streaming the full thing anyway. I'll just have Twitch open and I'll look at things while I'm chatting. And who knows how many people, because this is new content dropping, right? So there is an actual market of people who would be like, they're stuck at work and they want to see somebody streaming. And so they would, because this is new content, and when they get home, they want to kind of know what the heck is up. So maybe they have a stream going, and that you would be in the market. You like, I still highly recommend you do the 50-10 thing, even when you're gaming. Force yourself to take 10 minutes and have a kind of a schedule that way. And 10 minutes is enough to go have a shower. 10 minutes is enough to go and kind of make something to eat. You remember I made bacon and eggs. That's kind of pushing it, but still, it's doable. And you do the 50-10 and just stream hard. And you've got the break timer concept. You don't have to do the timer thing. You can do a countdown timer, 10-minute countdown timer. And you got the music thing going, like leverage the podcast over into the stream. And just do it hard. And I got World of Warcraft, right? So, I mean, if you want to switch between you streaming and me streaming, we could probably do that too. I mean, why not? Because I would be using OBS. Okay, so it was going to be segment 3, but who cares? So the way that video would work in this particular context is so Minion is streaming via OBS. So it goes on his side of stuff. He receives audio via Discord, and that audio, the chain goes audio from Discord into OBS as an input source, and then it does streaming out from OBS into Twitch, right? So it's got its little plugin. Now, what I can provide for Discord is video and audio, and he can just plug in video and audio from Discord to OBS, and then OBS streams, right? So that chain is already in. And what I would do on my end to make that possible is I actually can take, instead of having a webcam and having Discord video me, I would do something a little bit different, which is I have OBS and OBS scenes and all its functionality. But I'm not streaming with OBS. I'm just viewing. So my microphone plugs into OBS, my webcam plugs into OBS. OBS packages it together and provides it to Discord as a mic source and a webcam source, as a video source. And then it takes that, it pushes it to Minion, so via Discord. So I can actually fake OBS into being a video source, or being its own webcam. And it lets me perform all kinds of OBS related magic, scene changes, multiple cameras, and game stuff. So I can actually have overlays of a video game that I'm playing with me or with whatever, and I can provide that to Discord. And it just appears as one image to Discord, one 1920 by 1080 image video to Discord live. And it would go to Minion, and Minion could drop it in as a scene or whatever the heck. So we actually would have the ability to switch between you streaming and me. So you playing a game and streaming it out across the internet, and me playing a game and streaming it through Discord to you, which is the dumbest thing for us to do. We still need to have a local network video service. That would probably be way better. It would stop wasting our internet. So instead of me like pushing out a video stream, and then it's you, and then you pushing out another video stream. So we have an amazing net connection, supposedly, quote unquote. We have an expensive net connection. Same thing, right? And so it can probably handle it just fine. But there are other people in the household, right? So if our phone is doing something at the same time, we don't want to have like other people that do internet related stuff to have their experience wrecked. And this is going to be 24/7, isn't it? Like, we could totally have it where the stream just does not stop for a week straight. And while you're sleeping, I would be streaming. We can just totally do that. And when I'm up and around and alive, I may or may not be a little video window in your game. But it would be scheduled for Wednesdays and Sundays, for example. I'll just make that a regular show, and for the rest of it, I'll pop in and answer questions or something. I'll answer them wrong like an idiot. I mean, so if you want to pursue something like that, I don't know that anybody's ever done anything proper like that. Just like, it's a perma stream. It just goes, it's a cooperative community of streamers, a community of two. I still wonder how sensitive this microphone is, because the monitoring is amazing. Anyway. So tomorrow we should take the full opportunity to test all that stuff, dust everything off, get our streaming skills going again. I'll spend as much time as I need to, and then we'll be ready for like literally sitting on the login screen, waiting for that queue timer or that whatever the heck. World of Warcraft is bad for something like this, or it has been in the past. It is getting suspiciously better. Suspiciously as in, we can't tell the difference between the game getting better for queue times, like better login servers or whatever, and the game just dying slowly because less people are trying to log in. We don't know. I am one of the few people that can tell when a video game has fundamental underlying technological changes that the developers just don't talk about, which I will spoil quick. Okay, so there's this weird pandemic that's going around, and one of the ways that I can participate in doing actual research on it, I mean that literally, so I'm participating in a research project, is you can actually there is now the very largest let's say a cooperative computing community in human history. We have now more computing power in that set of projects than every other computer in human history, all the supercomputers. And it's working on a set of problems. So, and I'm participating in that. So my computer doesn't get turned off. It's constantly working on these problems. Now, I don't have an impressive machine, but I'm part of one specific team, and that team is part of a community of teams all working on one aspect of this problem. And so I want to have that going, that thinking. And that thinking interferes with performing other actions. So you can imagine if your computer is quote unquote occupied, then you can't really do other stuff. Now, there is little stuff. If you're just you're editing a text file, then the fact that your computer is spiked to 100% doesn't matter with your keyboard typing in characters, right? Because things are multitasking well enough that that you can still move your mouse around. Back in my day, when your computer was spiked to 100%, you could barely wiggle your mouse. It was really bad, really bad. Anyhow, now it's a lot better. And the thing is, if you're playing a video game, your video game is working real hard, depending on the game. And that's the thing. World of Warcraft got edited, got really heavily changed. And the engine got changed. And it was beyond remarkable. Like, I am kind of shocked that any game developer would do what they have done. Now, I don't really know why they did it, because it seems like a lot of work. It doesn't seem like it made a whole lot of business sense, because technically what they did is they lowered their system requirements for the game, and it was already an old game. But what that allowed a lot of people to actually increase their graphics quality. It was really remarkable. Now I can peg everything at max, well, I mean, I was a 4 frames per second player for a long time because I had just terrible hardware. And I got new hardware anyway. So now I don't put it at maximum, but I put it like better than it was before. It's a remarkable experience, remarkable. And it's so good that I can have code folding, which is folding at home is the project name. And I could have that thinking happening while I'm playing the game, and it does no impact on the game. And part of that is because the game is so well optimized that it's not relying on the CPU so much. It's relying more on the graphics processing, and the graphics processing is also a part of the computation of the folding of this computer, this cooperation, this computer thinking. But it doesn't interfere with the game. Wow, it's really impressive. Now, that was not true for this other game that I play, Heroes of the Storm. So it's a Dota, a terrible cartoony fun Dota. And I needed to turn it off. Now, I don't have to. As of a couple of Tuesdays ago, actually, like maybe 3, they did some quiet changes behind the scenes, and I no longer need to turn it off. Now, that is kind of untrue under certain circumstances, and I'm not sure what those circumstances are. So I will freeze up and kind of disconnect maybe once in a while. So it's like a temporary pause, and then I reconnect automatically, and the game continues. So it's like it might happen once, and then it's done. It's like when it's loading in stuff, when it's reading stuff, when it's thinking about stuff, it needs to do the math. It can't for a moment, and it freaks out. But generally speaking, I've actually forgotten to turn it off, and it just runs perfectly, and it can't tell. So that's a really wonderful experience to know that I think maybe what they did is they flagged an exception to make. And maybe what they did is they know about this project. They went, okay, well, we want to make sure that we get the game out of the way for this one particular type of operation. And they made their software happier with that other software. I think something like that is probably what they did, but I don't know enough. And Man, is it impressive stuff. Impressive. At any rate, um, 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 um. Hmm. Before I forget about World of Warcraft entirely, before I want to move on, I just learned today, although it's not old news, but it is older. It's There was this problem in the game where everything was lower population, like interest in the game is dropping, right? Interest in the game is dropping outside of China. And so what they were doing is they still want the game to have lots of people. So you're playing with lots of people all together. So what they did is they took all these lower population quote unquote servers, which are distinct units, and they pulled them all into they merged a whole bunch together. And the idea is to concentrate more players into the same quote unquote game. So I am only able to participate in other people that are playing this one collection of servers. And that's because of hardware technology problems, limitations, because it's expensive to run servers. And so they had a bunch of different ones. And so you could only have X number of thousand players on this one and this one and this one. Technology has improved, so maybe they just purchased better equipment or whatever the heck. And there was some thinning of the participants. And at any rate, they brought a bunch together, and so we got the best and the worst from all of these other 3 servers, I think it was. And some of them included these people that would run like 4 accounts all at the same time and link them all together to cooperate. Is controlled by one human. And this is quote unquote legal. And it's legal because they're paying for multiple subscriptions. So there's kind of the game authors, Blizzard, they allow it because they're getting paid, so they don't technically care. However, the purpose of doing that is explicitly to gain advantage. So you have these people where they would essentially be running something of a con, taking crap out of the world, earning stuff, not playing like a regular character. They're just doing this stuff in the environment. And it actually, not only does it pollute that particular space where they're doing this stuff, because maybe they will be taking advantage of some mechanic in the game in order to gain. And that is making it really difficult, potentially impossible, for other players to perform similar actions, but for legitimate purposes to walk through. They just want to get a certain area done and get on and go play the rest of the game. Now they can't because there's one person just camping out doing all this crap. Now we're getting a lot of that now. And it's whoa, it's really bad. And it was end of the expansion, right? So everything is kind of calm, kind of winding down. So it was like really annoying, but it wasn't bothering anybody, because everybody had already done the stuff that they're now kind of polluting. So, but apparently Blizzard noticed this, which is really surprising. They noticed it, and they're applying a rather broad rule. And the rule is going to be polite right now, which is if these people are using certain programs to provide input for the game client, that software is going to get noticed and they're going to get a warning. It's going to be a polite warning, and later it's going to start getting heavy like delete the account heavy, right? And that mechanism, that method, is one of the methods being used by these players that are controlling multiple accounts. Now, again, the multiple accounts is legal, and there will continue to be legal ways of doing that and using them, and those will be sanctioned. But this other method, this more common method, is going to just be hammered, and it's going to be hammered right in time for this new expansion, which is wonderful. It may in fact already be underway for this coming Tuesday. So that is nice to it's nice to hear that a developer notices this stuff, like the team notices and implements something and actually, adds it to the rules and enforces it. Like that's really shocking. They must have noticed this in more places than just my collection of servers in my quote unquote community. It must have been a problem that was happening everywhere because yeah, now the occasion maybe it was rare in that server and that server and that server, but now that they're all combined together, it's common on that one unified super server. So yeah, so they noticed now. That is rare. It is rare. It is rare for a lot of developers. It's rare. Most of the time, they just kind of let things slide. I think Minion. I think you've seen that with Destiny a few times, where there certain things become possible, and the developers are like, well, and they take a while. There's like foot dragging.
All the time they take to catch and fix certain things they should spend on others. It's just silly.
Yeah, there's always drama too, because there's some people who are like, oh, and there's a bunch of people that never knew about it in the first place, and now they're kind of salty that it got taken away. They're like, oh wow, for a moment I might have been able to but they didn't care enough. If they cared enough, they would have found out. They would have done it. I'm like that. I'm like, oh well, I don't feel too bad because I know I miss out when I don't try hard enough, when I don't listen to a community. But I don't like doing that so much. I don't like looking at strategies and learning about these little loopholes and stuff. I like discovering them because I discover them on my own, uniquely on my own, and exploit them on my own. But in doing it such a way that I'm not taking away from other people. I'm not even noticed by other people, but I do bring it up to my guild mates occasionally and quietly, and things will quietly get fixed without the community at large knowing about it in the first place. And so it's like I was the guy that discovered that. I was the guy that let Blizzard kind of know about this. I was allowed to exploit it for a little bit. I never got warned or punished or anything like that. It got quietly closed. Nobody hurt. Nobody got hurt. I wasn't out competing anyone. I didn't get anything interesting and unique and blah, 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 blah. And that's the way I like doing things. I don't like going and reading strategies for anything. I really love discovering things. I really love going and exploring and this kind of stuff. And speaking of, and I mentioned this once or twice, and I'm so happy that this quietly got inserted into the game. Okay, so again, World of Warcraft. So I made a character, and I decided that for every opportunity I was given, I would decline entering into some certain storyline. I'd just be like, nah, I don't feel like it. I'm just, nah, yeah, the world is doomed. Okay, nah, I'll just go do this stuff over here. Turtles need saving. Okay, I'll just go do that. That's more interesting. And I did that a couple of times. My character's experience of a couple of urgently important places, I can't actually see that place properly. I can't interact with that place properly. I can't go to our home city. It's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't work right. It's empty. And I did that a few times. I actually mentioned it. And one of the problems is the most recent content, I did that again. And so I can't go to the home capital. There's nothing there. And so if this new event happens and it's like, whoa, go to the capital and talk to this person and go and pick up this quest line and go and do these different tasks there, and then you get sent off into the other. I couldn't do any of that, even if I wanted to. I think even if I wanted to, I'm not really sure how I would do some of it. At any rate, Blizzard's just having it when you log in on Tuesday, you just get a quest. And then you go to this other area. I don't even have to care about this current stuff. So I get to leave all of this completely broken forever. And it'll just be notch on my belt for another busted game. Because it was funny. It's funny to do it. And I made a bunch of people laugh because they're like, Why would you do that? It's so dumb. It's so unnecessary. And it's like, well, I did it. I played through it all already. This is just a spare character. It was just, well, I wanted to see if it was possible. It's possible. At any rate. So I'm kind of excited for Tuesday to see if I can actually do this with this character, do this weird stuff. Oh yeah. Maybe I'll save it for.
We're on a
Oh,
break.
are we on break right now?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna be back in like 8 minutes now. I'll see you guys soon. Well, I'm back. Are you?
Yep.
Okay. Well, this is the last segment of Lucid Indifference. That's lucidindifference.com. This is 2020 11. Oh, I'm just going to have to scroll down. 1108 this is episode 32. I'm going to make this mostly about Administrivia, as usual. I'm going to talk about the podcast a bit more directly. I'm also going to be talking about a lot of the audio side of stuff. Now, I don't know if anybody can really tell the difference. I really hope so. So this new microphone, this is the second episode with this microphone. I hear a big difference. I hear a very big difference. One of the advantages is it's a combination of very sensitive and not very sensitive, or rather very sensitive and quiet. And quietness is a concept with microphones because there is an inherent kind of a hum to the, let's call it the electronics. Now, it can be introduced by the microphone. It's probably never going to be introduced by the cabling, theoretically, but no. And by the interface. So the thing that turns the analog signal from a microphone into something that your computer can interact with. And that hardware can be inexpensive. And the trade-off is that you get a little bit of background hum. And as a listener, under most circumstances, you may not even hear it, especially because if somebody's talking, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the noise and such won't be listened to for two reasons. One is somebody's talking over it, and the other is your brain has this interesting trick where you can pay attention to certain stuff and the rest is gone. It just goes away. And this is this you can demonstrate this by listening to your favorite song and then listening for one particular instrument, and then listening for a different particular instrument, and then for the lyrics or something like this, and paying attention and try. If you understand enough about the music that you can follow along the instrumentation, so that you do have more engagement with it, you will notice while doing that you'll catch yourself not hearing other instruments. So you might listen to the bass and then not quite hear the drums very much. You'll find yourself kind of fading out. Your attention goes away. The same thing happens with noise, and with a good microphone, if you don't talk, if you have these moments of calm, and you don't have mechanisms either in hardware or in software to get rid of certain what's called a noise floor, a little bit of a buzz or a rumble or what, it's just in the background. If you have these gaps where a person isn't talking and there's no mechanism to get rid of this other stuff, you'll hear that. You'll hear that. But for certain microphones and certain interfaces, you won't. That won't be generated in the first place. So it doesn't have to be like equalizered out or noise gated or like a low cut or high pass or whatever the heck. You don't have to get rid of that. Like this microphone is like that. It doesn't generate noise. It's really interesting. So I can actually turn it up so that it is very sensitive. So it's quote unquote listening harder. And so it's listening to the space around it really well. And it's because everything is turned up, it's still not extra sensitive and making that extra background noise. So I did that today. I used to record dead air, and that dead air recording is useful for removing noise from the rest of the track. And during the moments between sentences, there's other mechanisms to get rid of any kind of excess noise. And it's really, really effective there. But during words, during speech, you want to kind of get rid of that noise as well. So you have some intelligence in there that can do that kind of thing. But the sound, the background hum, the sound that gets generated, I did some listening tests and I did some recording tests, and it's under minus 46 dB, which you can't hear. And so even if I whisper, my whispering is minus 46 at least, right? It goes much louder than that. And if I just talk really quietly, then I'm always over that. So I actually that can be completely limited. It's weird what's possible with a better microphone. It's weird the things you learn about. Now, as I was talking, I realized that I'm still going to record some silence and I'm still going to do noise removal. I'm going to do that after we're done the show, just really quick. And because that's still a measure of improvement. That's kind of important. Now, what's interesting about this microphone is my previous microphone was a blue. The brand is blue. The model is a Yeti Nano. It has a mute button on it. This is expected on USB microphones, and this is not almost never provided on an XLR microphone or any other kind of traditional microphone. And it may not even be possible on the interface, so the little box itself. You may just have no ability to mute it. Normally what you would do is you would turn some knobs all the way down so that things aren't powered so hard, turn certain things off, and you'd unplug cables. And that's what off means. And so what I do with this microphone, so what I have here is a condenser microphone. And a condenser microphone is it's, I guess you could say it's power hungry. It requires additional power. So there's a 48 volt power provided by this interface. I don't understand the electronic side of things well enough. I forgot all my high school physics. So I actually just have, I think it's USB. I think I did plug it into USB 3. But it's using voltage, like USB 2 level power supply. It can get that, and it somehow kicks it up to 48 volts. And all I have to do is, in order to mute this microphone, quote unquote mute, what I do is I turn off that power. What's interesting is it still takes like 30 seconds before it kind of slowly gets so insensitive that it may as well be muted. I think you heard me like coughing. Just there's like a minus 50 dB spike in there somewhere, which is like a little blip on a flat line. That's how I mute this thing now. So it's a little different to get used to all of these things. Like if I want to use headphones, then I need one of these fat adapters. So I'm not using a regular audio jack. And if I want to do that, I actually have to screw my headphone jack into that adapter, which didn't used to be a thing. I hope that's not proprietary to this headset, because that would be annoying. If I lose that thing, I can't just get a replacement, because none of them are threaded like that. So whenever changing to kind of a new setup, it's never just an improvement. It's always weird. It's always these new different things, and nobody ever talks about the stuff. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes you guess it. But a lot of the times when you're handling this stuff, it's like, oh, well, the USB cable they sent me is really short. Like, okay, well, that means that I need to have this thing near a computer. But that would be really inconvenient if I had a computer that was loud, because you can't have a loud computer next to a sensitive microphone, right? So that's something that people never talk about. The XLR cable, so it's a big cable that fits from the microphone into this interface. That's really insanely long. It's like, okay, well, that would have been nice to know. Well, that helps me position the microphone anywhere I want, basically anywhere in this room. But I don't want to do that. So now I have to coil it and then deal with this, because it's thick cable. Now I have like a coil of cable there, which is annoying, and on and on and on like that. The biggest deal that I have to worry about is this microphone. So I'm gonna demonstrate it a little bit gently. So I'm gonna moderate my voice. You can't quite. It's not as harsh, and it also helps with post production. So if I were to move closer to this microphone, I'm providing a nearer sound, and essentially the volume goes up, right? Because there's a drop off as I move away from the microphone. It's really designed to do that, but it's just a limitation of the technology. It's how audio works, how sound waves work. So if I were to move closer to the microphone and I can talk a little bit like this, my voice actually gets picked up quite a lot louder. So I'm gonna talk about the same. I can touch my nose to the pop screen, and I sound really, really loud. And if I back away, so this is my normal position. I'm going to lean, pardon the creak of the chair. I can talk like this, way back here, and you can actually tell that I'm far away. And there is an incredible advantage there with that distance. I don't have to move very much. And if you're doing voice acting or something like that, the ability to get up close and talk into the microphone, you can kind of whisper, and it's still very clear. And so I can have a certain tone of voice where, like, hey, and I can whisper and things like that. And that matters if you're communicating, if you're doing storytelling or something like that. And if I wanted to shout, I can move back. I'm shouting, but the volume doesn't change. Not so much, right? But if I'm here and I shout, that's just more volume. So you can do some funny tricks with this. And one of the problems with that, like, that's an advantage, but one of the problems with that is now microphone positioning and my positioning matters. If I turn my head away and I talk over here, you can actually hear the difference. And if I turn around, right? And so there's a clarity problem. Now, if you're doing something like streaming, you got the problem of microphone positioning, and it's really important that you don't just have the microphone positioning. You have it pointed a certain way, and your head is pointed a certain way, and you're not as animated, it's strange to have to learn to restrict your own body and your own movements. Now, the problem additionally is because this is sensitive to distance. If it is sensitive to distance, that means it has to be positioned a certain way. And if you've got a camera, then there are angle problems. Now, this microphone is beautiful. I don't know about this microphone arm, so I have to make sure it doesn't actually enter the picture. But I think I would be quite happy, proud even, to have this microphone slightly blocking my face even. But to have it to one side is a little challenging to figure out how it's pointed at my face. So it's learning about this stuff is part of the interest of my having gotten it in the first place. So it is, I'm really happy with the choice. I don't have enough experience with a variety of other things to really give any recommendation right now. But I can say that for a streamer, it is not appropriate to have this kind of microphone, at least in this positioning, because of problems of having it in the streamer's face and because of sensitivity to distance. It turns out that the previous microphone that I had so it's an advantage, disadvantage. The advantage is you could have it further away, like off camera, and it would still pick up your voice well. The disadvantage is the drop off, the distance volume thing, backing away and the volume kind of going down. That was less present, and so it wouldn't have that kind of drop off as aggressive for something like traffic outside. So it had the problem of picking up more background noise in the room and lots of unwanted stuff that's out there. So there's an advantage and a disadvantage. Now, a lot of streamers are streaming at like 2 a.m. and stuff like that. But if you want to do prime time when everybody's coming home from work or whatever the heck, you're going to get a lot of traffic noise. So there are advantages of using a USB microphone for something like streaming, and getting it out of the way and still being clear. And so you have just a full face. Now, fascinating would be the new technology that's coming out, which is the automatic kind of AI detection, the automatic green screening of a sort, the background removal, so you can do the floating head and shoulders thing. Most people, what they'd have is they'd have a single color behind them, and they'd chroma key it out, so they green screen it out. And you don't need to do that anymore with contemporary technology, because it can do, you just take the human, wiggle the human around, the software goes, oh, that's the moving part, and it takes all the non-moving parts, and it just kind of paints them out. Now, if you had a microphone like this one, and this were in a fixed position, but not blocking my face, then it could be painted out. And so I haven't tinkered with that, but it occurs to me that if I could do that well, then that is an option if I wanted to be a floating head with no microphone visible. So I'm wondering what that would be like. I do want to talk about the room setup and stuff like this. So I had been gently changing the way things are in this. I can almost call it a recording space. I'd been making it so it's possible to have multiple stacks of bins and put them up and take all the. So what I ended up doing is I ended up disassembling a set of shelves that were kind of buckling under the weight of books. And I think I'm going to obsolete as many books as possible. One of the things is I wanted to have paper copies of a lot of things, and I think I'm going to go out of my way to get, for things that are public domain, there are actual, you can get in a copy from either archive.org, or you can get it from the Gutenberg. I think that is gutenberg.org. And Project Gutenberg has a whole lot of public domain stuff. And I'm interested in stuff like philosophy and some of the old stories, like things like fairy tales and stuff like this. And that's partly work, and it's partly my interest. And I used to have paper copies of a lot of this stuff. I think I'm going to do everything I can to get rid of my paper copies of everything. And there's some paper copies of things that I have because I can't get any other version, but maybe I should. Maybe it is worth me paying money to get to replace these big, bulky, heavy paper copies with digital copies with whatever. And I might pursue that, right? I might. Now, but some of the books, I don't know that I will ever read them. I don't know that they matter. Some of them are, like, I got a book from 1910. and some of these, like, is it collectible? I don't care about selling this stuff on eBay, but I mean, it is kind of cool. It is kind of cool to have some of this stuff, to have it as kind of art. And I had, so there's a fireplace in this room, and the mantle. So it's got essentially a big shelf above it, and I just filled it with books. It's one of the I don't know if I can call it a tradition, and it's pretty. And so I got all my pretty books, and I put my pretty books up there, and it made for I felt it made for a very good backdrop for doing videos. And I repositioned things, and unfortunately I don't have access to that as a background space anymore. So everything got moved, webcam's going to get moved, and so I can even get rid of those books, theoretically. I really wish these were complete sets, and I might go out of my way to try to find and buy some of the missing books, because these really are beautiful. And having like the complete collection of that particular edition of, is that Agatha Christie? That particular edition of these nice red leather-bound Agatha Christie books, it would be really cool. I'd be proud to have that on my shelf. At any rate, I moved stuff, and I dedicated a corner of this particular room that I'm in, and it's backed into, I am backed into the corner of this room, and I positioned and got this particular microphone, and I positioned it in such of a way. So you've got a pickup pattern on a microphone. It ends up being like a little graph, and it's got concentric circles. So it looks like an archery mat. So with little circles around it, and it's got the microphone in the middle, and it's got a pattern around it. And it's something like, they say it's a cardioid pattern, so they say it's heart-shaped. Not really. And that indicates a volume change depending on distance, and it paints the direction. So the notion is that it has more sensitivity in the front of the microphone where you're sitting and talking, and less behind it. And that's just kind of where the sensors are pointed. So the microphone it's pointed towards your face. Well, so it's facing away from the stuff behind it, so it's not going to hear very well from that end. It's designed like that. You can say it's a limitation, but it's really an advantage. Now, that means I can point it at me, but I can move where I want it to be, and I can move so that the back of the microphone is pointed towards loud stuff, whatever that means. And I rearrange the room with that in mind so that its back is facing the traffic outside. So that based on that cardioid, based on that pickup pattern, it's probably doing a 10, I think it's 10-15 dB of volume decrease, and that represents going from whisper to silent, or going from a low rumble to something that I can remove completely. It makes it really, really nice to work with. And so, for example, hang on, let's see if I can. I'm going to lift my headphones off for one moment so I can listen in authentic ears. Yeah, I don't think I've had a good example of background noise. So I've got headphones that are fairly isolating, so I can't really hear the outside. I really only hear what the microphone picks up. That's kind of the point. And so this isn't picking up any idling cars outside or any cars driving by. There's still going to be a problem with, those people that have very loud stereos. It might pick up stuff like that, but it's really good. And if I do recording on my own at 3 a.m. for like audiobooks or something, which I'm probably not going to do because they don't pay well, and like at all, they're just terrible. But for doing little stuff or whatever the heck, maybe we'll see. This will be exceptional. Now, what it's pointed at, the sensitive part, isn't just me, but the stuff that's behind me. So it's looking at me, it's looking at my mouth, it's looking at my head, my chest, but it's looking behind me in the background. So that means that the background behind me becomes really important too, because weird things happen to a person's voice. Your voice washes over the microphone. That's what it's listening to. That's great. Then it bounces off the stuff behind it, which doesn't matter too much, but it comes back, which could be a problem because sooner or later it'll bounce off the stuff beside and behind. It'll make its way back to that sensitive part. I've talked about this before. That isn't just a problem because you get bad, like the audio does nasty things when it bumps up against a wall and it's not authentic when it gets back in, and there's a delay, and that delay combines with your voice, and and this is the sound source. You're not going to audio edit that out. You really can't. So what's behind me matters. What's beside me matters. What I'm sitting in actually matters. But because I backed into a corner, I can actually do some real magic behind me to do audio treatment behind me that is, I think, would be extremely effective. And what's behind it are just straight walls, and what's behind those walls is also like hallway stuff. So that's also kind of still air. If I was backed into a bedroom, then I'd have to worry about what that other person in that other bedroom has, right? What they're doing with the stereo, video game, right? Kind of thing. But I don't, because of this particular room that I chose, this particular corner that I chose, I don't get any of that. And these are the sorts of things that it took me a while. It took me quite a lot of videos, and I read the comments for some of these, and some people will have some good criticisms of videos. This is why it's really nice when people allow commentary on their videos when they're not scared, right? Which is also why I like very small channels, because they don't turn comments off because they want feedback, or they want participation because that helps channels grow. It is actually a thing. At any rate, moving on to something else. I had these huge bins that I was moving these books into. And the thing is, the bins really are, they're big enough to lie down in, not straighten your legs, but to curl up in. And I could fill them with books. The thing is, I can fill them so much with books that I can't actually move them. They've got a pair of wheels on one side and a big handle, but they're still really hard to move. So I was able to pull everything away, and I'll look at that. I'll manage my stuff a little bit better and move it. I don't know if I've got garage space or whatever, this kind of stuff. So that's both given me room in one corner of this place, and it's taken up room elsewhere because now it's kind of full of bins, which sucks. Now I had plans, and I looked for software that would help me map all this stuff out, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's never that easy in person. I moved this, and I ended up like just barely being able to open a door. And then I realized I was moving in and out of this space in a certain way, and it was inconvenient. And you walk past one of these door stoppers on the spring, and it just goes boing, boing, boing. I was doing that too often. I'm like, okay, this is just driving me mental. So I moved things around. I went off plan, and I moved it even more. And I like the setup even better, right? It just turns out even better. But the problem is my desk moved, and it's near the fireplace now. I'm like, okay, well, that means I'm going to be cold because I'm not going to be turning this fireplace on because I've got cables right next to it, and I'm kind of scared.
Couldn't you just move the desk away when you're turning it on?
Well, that's the thing. I could move the desk away and then trap myself a different way. And I thought about that, but getting in and out of this space involves walking all the way around the desk, which is kind of annoying. And I kind of don't want to do that. Well, one of the reasons is a couple of my cables just aren't long enough. So I need to go and order more cables. I think it's just power cables at this point. I'm not sure how long the power cables I have are. I think they're 6 feet. I think they're less than 6 feet actually, but I'm going to replace them with 10 feet. And I'm sick of black cables, so I'm going to get some. I can't get, unless they're bright orange, you're not getting any color other than white. So I'm getting some medical grade white cables. They're going to be really nice, heavy duty, awesome. And then I could think about moving the desk back. And as long as I'm not blocking the door, what this will do is this will back me into the corner even more. Now there's some interesting problems that happen when you're backing into a corner. Namely, and the way I've positioned it is actually so sound can reflect off of one wall unequally from the other wall. And so the sounds don't bounce back directly into the microphone how would I explain it in words? So obviously if the microphone were right up against the corner of a room and pointed right into the corner, like equidistant from both walls and pointed right into the seam of the corner, the audio would bounce perfectly back into it. And so no matter how far I back away, that problem would still exist from the reflectivity of the walls. Again, I'm going to treat the walls, but still. But I'm actually offset further along one wall of a rectangle. That's the way I've set up right now. So it's actually really nice. And it lets me wheel in I got like a cart that I got from IKEA that you can use as it would be a really cheap way to hang something for doing a green screen. It's just not tall enough. Well, yeah, it's tall enough. Not for standing, but for sitting. But it's used for like a clothes rack. So I can actually get a bunch of old shirts and put them on and put them there and essentially have a closet behind me is what I can manufacture. So I can do that. And I've got IKEA sent me an ironing board for some reason. And so I can put an old quilt or a duvet over top of it. And so that's kind of what I have set up right now. And the audio sounds pretty good right now. I can improve it in other ways. But shifting the desk around is a little, yeah, it's just a cabling issue right now. But speaking of cabling, because I set things up so well, and the plan was going well into my head, and I already had extra cables coming in, and when I tried one of them, I'm getting a fuzzy image on it. And it's just, I went and I tried different ports, and I tried different video card, motherboard versus discrete card, and then I'm okay, well, maybe the cable's bad. I tried a different cable because I ordered a pair of these, and the other one's fuzzy in the exact same way. Reset the monitor, fiddled with some settings just in case it's got like some wacky alignment thing that's happening. And nothing. And just switched to one of my spare cables, works perfectly. So now I've got to send these cables back to Amazon. Is really good about this. And I decided, heck, while I'm at it, I'll return some other stuff too. I'll just make a big deal out of it. They increased the window for returns, which I didn't realize. Otherwise I would have returned these terrible sheets that I bought. But learning experience. So, like, technically speaking, I'll make all that money back, and then I'll spend it on better cables, and then I can think about moving the desk and blah blah blah. But I was thinking about shortening this desk, which I still can do. I can just like table saw it and then reattach the legs really easily. Just pilot holes and then screw it back in. IKEA table, right? This works perfectly. And then, but I'd have to put one of my spare arms on its own monitor arm, and so that it'll still fit. Anyhow, this has been a wonderful adventure, but it took me so many hours of just sweat and planning and moving stuff around, and yeah. When I was a kid, I used to just occasionally shuffle stuff around my room and just see what it's like over this way, and it's not fun anymore. I don't like doing it. I don't like change. I'm old. I'm grumpy. So yeah. What else? Meaning you're in a different location now, so it doesn't matter right now because you don't talk a whole lot, but you have the most awful echo.
I'm in an empty room with other than a computer and a TV right
Yeah.
beside me. It's
So
an empty room.
you're in a dungeon and all the brickwork is like reflecting the sound, and
I'm thinking of just throwing stuff on the wall to ease up on the bounciness of the volume, but it's
I mean,
only 2 weeks. It's only less than 2 weeks.
yeah. I don't think it's going to matter at all. But I learned about this stuff as part of my big experience. In order for you to do anything about it, I mean, it's the equivalent of throwing a blanket over your head, which is a trick that works, kind of. Putting a bunch of pillows up in a pile in one area, hanging stuff off the walls, and yeah, all that's doable. Or like I said, an object like an ironing board leaned up against a wall with a blanket over it. All you'd have to do is manage the reflections on two areas, and it's probably fine. So behind you and to one side of you is good enough. And the nearer one of them is, the better. Yeah, things and stuff and such. And that thinking about things like that matters, because if I were to upgrade you to a different microphone for the podcast, like giving you my earlier microphone, then room treatment might matter, especially if you talk more, right? Obviously. Because it's more, so the microphone that you have now is probably some sort of supercardioid thingy. It's not like actually, I don't know the technology that you have in it, but it's designed to point at your mouth and not care about anything else, especially the room. And another microphone might really care about room noise or echo or background noise or all this kind of crap. And one little change, like a different microphone, might mean like there would be consequences for all kinds of other stuff everywhere. And it might be it might be too much work, especially because it's you, right? So I don't know that you're ready for all this crap until. Have you fixed the playlist displaying on the YouTube page, on the front YouTube page? Made it look better? Put our clips playlist up there, put our podcast playlist up there. No? No. Is it? Is it? I'm going to go.
I've changed the update, but I've updated the playlist so it goes from newer. The oldest is the first ones ever are at the bottom, and the new ones are at top.
Yes, that gives a better impression. And the other would be making sure the front page has 3 rows. So everything, and then the next one is just clips, and then.
I did not know about that.
So you can kind of customize that front page, and so it will be uploads, which you currently have, and then clips, the clips playlist, and then the shows playlist, and that lets it because I really want to help people look at the clips because they're kind of the best ofs, and they're really all wonderful and stuff. And I don't know if like once a month we should have like a take the day off and have like a 2-hour just set of clips. Something like that might be cool, but I don't know. I don't know at all. So yes, you want to do video for Wednesday? You want to try that for sure? Try streaming?
Yeah, we'll give it a shot.
So we'll do some experimentation tomorrow, and then, man, I got a busy day, and I've been so busy trying to. There's get New Year's resolutions kind of thing. I had this thing where I wanted to just go through a lot of my old notes and stuff and just dust things off and put a whole bunch of projects to bed. And I've been working on that stuff because the year's almost up and I want to be done this stuff. So a whole bunch of things and things. Blah. I'm pretty much out of stuff to talk about. I kind of want to talk about a new keyboard because I remember talking about my dented control key that's kind of worn down. I've had this thing since like the early 2000s. I've had this wonderful Dell multimedia keyboard. It's fantastic. It's got a very small bezel on the left-hand side, which is where I put my hand. And the layout is perfect. And it's just a very hard wearing thing, and it has a volume control knob. I don't care about any of the other buttons, just care about the knob. And it's got a wonky, kind of soft, squishy control key now. And so I was looking at all these other alternatives, and none of them have the proper layout. And it bugs me. It bugs me because I'm used to a very particular thing. And apparently the layout that I'm used to is because of the IBM Model M. It's a 5-pound keyboard with an incredible build quality. And it, I want to use the correct phrase. Oh, what's it called? Oh, no, I'm not going to look it up right now. But it's actually not mechanical, as weird as it sounds. Because I was learning a bit about the technology and looking at the patent diagrams and stuff like this. And but its layout, its very particular layout is what influenced all keyboards from that point on. And I miss mine. I had multiples of them. They all kind of died, and I just got frustrated and threw them away. They'd be worth, like I probably had $1,000 worth of keyboards at one point. Just of those, and a whole bunch of other stuff that probably was worth quite a lot of money. You never appreciate anything properly when you're a kid. The stuff that becomes collectible later in life. It's like, oh, well. And so I've been looking at getting a replacement keyboard, and because I missed just being a typer. And I gave you my squishy scissor key waterproof Logitech. And it took me a while to get used to another keyboard again. So I'm not sure if I want to go and get another one of those, because getting a washable keyboard is pretty awesome. But one of the things I was recently looking at, again, was So the IBM Model M, IBM ended up moving their, getting their keyboards made by Lexmark, or what would become Lexmark. And Lexmark, so the world kind of changed to going from the kind of mechanical style stuff, the heavy duty style, to getting less and less expensive. Lexmark already reduced some stuff to make it cheaper, and then the world kind of changed to this other technology. And Lexmark eventually kind of disbanded their keyboard division, so to speak. And so these keyboards kind of faded. But what happened was a bunch of the original people from the teams that were involved with, I think originally IBM, maybe some Lexmark, ended up kind of quietly buying up the patents for all the components for the original Model M and its descendants. And they actually founded a company with the patents and legally created what would be spiritual successors or a descendant of the original IBM Model M. And I'm looking at their website. First off, these are raging nerds because the website is terrible. It's just awful, hard to get around. They really have a hard time selling their stuff because they're just not showing good pictures, and oh man, it's embarrassing. But I'm looking at a not unreasonably priced £7 keyboard. It's USB, no adapters or anything. It's a 105 key, which is a no, it's 106 keys. Oh, I can't remember, but it also has like the Windows key, right? The Windows key, and there's like a right click key that pulls up menus, things like this, and they've got that, and it's got the same build quality, the same font. They actually got the patents for everything. And this one that I'm looking at even has what's called I think it's IBM's original patent called the track point, which is a little nib that appears in the keyboard that you can move around as like a mouse pointer. And this is before touchpad technology existed. And so they actually bought the patent for that, and they included it in this keyboard. So it's like, this is a really, really cool keyboard that I'm thinking of buying. The problem is it is a classic clickety-clack, loud keyboard. But I'm not near other people, so I could clickety-clack loudly. Problem is, if I had to do any typing and doing recording and stuff like that, I'm just not doing them at the same time. So I don't think that's a problem. That's like a buy it for your life thing. That's easily going to last me like into my 70s somewhere. It's going to last a long time, probably longer than that, because it's just, they are taking it seriously, like really seriously. So I'm the thing is, I'm always finding these other new things to spend money on. It's probably not the smartest thing to do. And I'm trying to make all the things that I'm spending money on matter towards things that would be career related or hobby related more directly. And so I live on a computer, so that's how I would justify this keyboard. But I'm really I have a laptop that I have specialized just for writing. And I love that keyboard. It sounds weird because like laptop keyboards are trash. They're absolutely abysmal. But I love that. And I was going to go and get a spare, like a slightly improved spare, but apparently Dell does not carry that model anymore. So I'm really, really sad about that. And all their more recent laptops all have the wrong keys. Like they separate the page up and page down keys to be above the left and right cursor keys. I want those, the up, down, left, right, to be distinct because I need to reach for them easily a lot. And I just want to have like a function key, and function left to go home, function right to go end, function up to page up, function down to page down. It's obvious, and it's really, really easy to do that. And you need to have this functionality easy to find on keyboards and not have them be like dumb, distinct keys in a weird block at the top right of the keyboard, and it's just, I cannot stand that crap. And I've gone through a few generations of tiny computers, and they do stupid things with their keyboards, and having to, especially if it's made in Japan, things are really weird. Some key placement is really strange. I don't have it in arm's reach, but I actually own a tiny Japanese handheld computer, and its keyboard is just, it is just bad. It's just bad. And you have to remap things around if you want it to be in English and stuff like this. And then it gets really weird because the text on the keys doesn't match what you type always. So it's, yeah, it's bad. I think I'll save it for next time. I'll save it for next time. We're going to end really, really shortly, which is, I've been going through a lot of my old notes to find the projects that I want to put to bed and discover the ones that I probably should have been working on for the last few decades, and I kind of forgot about them. And one of my projects had to do with, I've heard other people call it this, but I picked up the term physicality. So it's everything from like diet and exercise and sleep, and it's being a physical, a mortal coil possessing thing, and managing that body. And so it does include things like workouts, but it may also include quite a lot of other weird subtle things. I actually found my old notes for this, and I actually made like a program that's sectioned up into like basics and a more intermediate. Oh, this is mic handling. Sorry, future self. We're gonna have to edit that out. I made this kind of exercise program that's split up into different sections, from beginner, intermediate, advanced stuff, and I would just dump notes and ideas and things into all these. And I had my future self in mind because I can go back and read it, and it's like really laying things out in a way that understood the problems that I had already, the things that I should have been working on, like my back or my squats, and the things that I would be concerned about as I got older, which is really cool. So I've got my past self made this big project for me right now. So I could actually take that, clean it up a little bit more, maybe make it a video series or talk about it or whatever the heck, and actually pursue it. And that could be like a New Year's resolution thing. It's get in shape for your summer body or whatever the heck fashionable thing there is. So I'm curious about that. I might dust some stuff off and make it like a topic for segment 1 or something like that, because I'm kind of out of stuff to do. But I do want to come back. We're going to come back on Wednesday. We're going to come back and we're going to try some streaming, and we're going to, in the usual time slot. So that's what, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern for North America. I'm sorry I can't do Europe yet. We'll start the regular me chatting, rambling, podcasty thing, but we'll be streaming probably since reset. So when is reset time for Destiny for you, Minion?
9, I think it was. 9 or 10, I can't remember.
I can't remember what mine is. I wonder if this will say.
But for me, I'm counting on the servers crashing, or I'm counting on their servers crying again, because that was fun.
Okay, so for me, it would be 7 Pacific or a 9. I can't say Atlantic, can I? Well, 9 Eastern time is when it goes down, and a couple hours later, so 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern is when it is expected to go back up. But who knows, right? So login server delays and crashes, and Blizzard's supposed to know what it's doing, but like, shrug, right? Okay, so and we'll do some experimentation tomorrow. Tomorrow, same general start time. We'll get together privately in the afternoon, I guess, early afternoon. We'll do some video testing. Should be easy.
Okay.
I'll do some on my own. Okay, everybody, this has been Lucid Indifference. That's lucidindifference.com. You can check out our website. I still have not put up a playlist because I keep forgetting. Look at our clips, and that's kind of our best of. If you like something, you can go to our YouTube channel. You can see all of our previous episodes have been uploading, including some specials, some older stuff that has not been released. And you can see us live on Twitch. You can check out our Twitch for our schedule and the like. Anyhow, I will see you on Wednesday. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.